When we think of ancient Rome, we usually picture togas, gladiators, or emperors yelling, "Et tu, Brute!" But for the average Roman, life wasn't all Senate speeches and chariot races. Most people were working-class citizens crammed into multi-story apartment blocks called insulae, living loud, chaotic lives powered by gossip, debt, and cheap wine. And in these overpacked neighborhoods, one thing united them all: street food. That's right, ancient Rome had its own version of fast food. And no, it wasn't delivered by scooter. Most Romans didn't have a kitchen, let alone an air fryer. Fire hazards and tight quarters meant cooking at home was rare. So people ate out. A lot. The go-to spot? The thermopolium, a street-side hot food joint with big jars of stew, spicy sauces, and questionable hygiene. Think food truck, but made of stone and operated by a guy named Lucius, who hasn't washed his tunic since Nero was a toddler. Picture this, you're Gaius, a 30-year-old bricklayer in 1st century Pompeii. It's hot. You've been working since sunrise, your tunic smells like wet limestone, and your boss is screaming because someone dropped a column. You've got one thing on your mind: lunch. You round the corner and there it is. The neighborhood thermopolium, already crowded with sweaty workers arguing about gladiator odds and the best garum blend. You slide up to the counter, an L-shaped slab decorated with painted serpents and divine figures. For blessing, probably also for marketing. Embedded into the counter are dolia, big sunken clay jars holding today's menu. There's a barley stew bubbling in one, olives and lentils in another, maybe some grilled fish if you're lucky. You toss the shopkeeper a couple of bronze coins, and he ladles out a steaming bowl. No forks here. You use your fingers or a scrap of bread as a scoop. It's fast, it's filling, and it doesn't require washing any dishes. Julius Caesar would have approved. As you eat, you hear two regulars arguing over whether chariot driver Scorpus is overrated and how much garlic is too much garlic. Behind the counter, the owner pours watered-down wine and flashes a grin. The kind that says, "I spit roast meat in the same spot where my dog sleeps." You know the food might be yesterday's leftovers reheated by sunlight, but hey, you've had worse. Plus, rumor has it the guy down the road adds actual meat to his lentils, and no one's trusted him since. After your meal, you wipe your hands on your tunic, standard napkin behavior. Maybe toss a coin to the shrine of Mercury for good digestion and head back to work. You're full, a little buzzed and only mildly poisoned. But most importantly, you've eaten like a true Roman. Fast, cheap, and in the company of at least 3 people yelling about cheese imports. Thermopolia weren't rare. Archaeologists have uncovered over 150 in Pompeii alone, often located on street corners or busy market lanes. Some were tiny walk-ups, others more elaborate, even with attached dining areas. Their bright wall frescoes often advertise what was on the menu: cooked beans, sausages, wine, and bread, and sometimes showed mythological figures for a little flair. A few even had painted menus or graffiti-style slogans like "hot food, cold wine, no credit." These fast food joints mostly served the lower and working classes, but they weren't frowned upon like modern stereotypes of fast food. In fact, thermopolia were hubs of social interaction. Philosophers, thieves, merchants, and soldiers all shared the same jars of stew. The wealthy elite still looked down their noses at them, of course. Upper-class Romans had kitchens, private chefs, and plenty of olive oil to burn. But for the common citizen, the thermopolium was essential, economical, and sometimes the only place to get a hot meal. One of the most incredible preserved thermopolium was discovered in 2020 in Pompeii, complete with vivid frescoes and remnants of duck, pig, fish, and even snail in the containers. Researchers also found crushed fava beans at the bottom of wine jars, a Roman trick to change the taste and color of cheap wine. It's evidence not just of what they ate, but how clever, resourceful, and, let's be honest, mildly gross some of these Roman food hacks really were. So the next time you swing through a drive-thru or microwave something suspicious at 2 a.m., remember, ancient Romans were doing the same thing, minus the microwave, and probably with more rats. Their version of fast food kept the empire going, one stew at a time. If you enjoyed this bite-sized trip through time, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Would you eat at a Roman thermopolium, or are you sticking with fries? Until next time, stay curious and maybe skip the fish sauce.